All right, cool. Can everybody hear me? Cool. All right. Thanks, Olu. I see you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let me share my screen really quickly and I'll get into it. Okay. So, welcome, everybody. Wait 1 second. I can't see you all. I don't like when I can't see you. Okay. All right, everybody, how y'all doing? Good afternoon. Hope you had your bio break and the snacks on deck. We're gonna keep this rolling. I just really want to talk to you all about the elements of a plan. It's gonna be a little bit more high level because Prescott and I are gonna work with you all actually through the elements of a plan in person and at our in-person planning session. So today, just want to give you an introduction to some things and also do a little recap of our last discussion in talking about the difference between city planning and community planning, just briefly, so that we all we know that you all remember what we talked about and that you are grounded in what we're trying to do moving forward. All right, so yeah, as I mentioned, we'll just do a little recap. We'll get into the elements of a city/community plan, a few examples. What's the purpose of these recap? Because we talked a bit about the purpose, but we'll recap a bit of what's the purpose of plans. And then I'll take you into a plan that I personally was a part of to just give you a little bit more deeper dive into what that looked like. And then we have a resource to share with you at the end that can help you navigate through some of the most relevant plans that you could use for the Shoreline Academy. So yes, before I get into presenting and talking and stuff, just want to recap on traditional version, kind of new age planning. New age is my term. I just call it new age planning. Anything that's new or different from the status quo of what's been done up until now and what's got us into this in just place that we're in. So yeah, I want to invite you all, turn on your camera, unmute yourself, and just want you to answer the questions. Do you remember? Sorry, I'm echoing. What do you remember about traditional planning processes? And also, what do you remember about the newer approaches to the planning processes? So I just want to know, just randomly, what do you all remember about what we discussed in terms of status quo planning and kind of the examples of newer age community planning that, WOET, Ms. Margaret Gordon, Brian talked about, myself, and that you all are being a part of today. Now stop sharing for a second so I can see everybody. Again, one or two people. The general plan is a big deal. Yes, it is. Can you tell me why, Adam, it's a big deal? Sorry to put you on the spot. Thanks for putting that out there. Only happens once a lifetime for some folks. Yes, we're blessed to have Ms. Margaret Gordon here, who's been a part of the process 20 something years ago and is still here today. So yeah, we're trying to change that once in a lifetime, but it's definitely a 2-decade process that basically sets out the blueprint for the city. So we want to make sure that we're influencing that. Red tape, limited, exclusive. Yes, the status quo planning, very exclusive. To who? Predominantly white men at the time, and even still today, but it's but it's changing. Only have been dictates everything. Yes, planning can dictate everything in the city. New, accessible, creative, innovative. Yes, we all have the opportunity to do new, more accessible, creative, and inclusive and innovative planning. You feel me? That can translate to anybody, any resident, your neighbor, so that everybody can be a part of the process. Democratizing planning and their new planning methods. Yes. Beautification. What about beautification, Olu?
Yeah, beautification is also the attractions that will bring people in. When you beautify the shoreline, it attracts people, it brings, participation and things like that.
Yes, beautification. Beautification is, making stuff look aesthetically nice and better, which again, we talked about last time that as residents, some of us natives or just long-term residents, we want to see our neighborhood look better, more beautified. It's just about, who gets the access to the beautified spaces. Are we going to be here once it's done being beautified? Those are the kind of, things that we talked about. Places made by the people who live there. Yes. Thank you, Veronica. I think that's a good one to go ahead and move forward on. So it seems like y'all got it pretty good. Healing through access to our natural resources. Yes, which is why we all here trying to, plan for our shoreline so we can help folks get to these spaces more to help enhance a better quality of life. We want to help, get to more economic opportunities around the shoreline and make sure we positively impacting the climate. Ooh, build out. Yes, let's build it out. Let's build out those empty spaces. All right, yes, loving to see y'all faces. Okay, so I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna jump back into the presentation. Thank y'all. It sounds like, again, y'all remember what old school planning used to be and still is, and what we're trying to transition to and what you're a part of. Earlier in the earlier presentation that we started with today, this was briefly mentioned, well, not briefly, but it was mentioned around a just transition. So I'm not gonna go into it super much, but just wanted to just talk about, what a just transition is and why it's important. And like, that's pretty much what we're planning for. So like transitioning away from an extractive economy gives us an opportunity to build one, like Olu said, build out, to build one that is visionary, thriving, and regenerative. So basically mean that instead of an economy that takes stuff away from you, we're gonna have an economy that gives back, that circulates. You feel me? It circulate love, money, resources, everything or whatnot is circulated, opposed to being taken from everybody and hoarded, in one place, which creates an imbalance of power amongst different entities. And we know mainly the community has been on the shorter end of that power stick. And so we want to plan for a just transition. How can we, again, do newer innovative planning that could create this more regenerative economy and not this extractive one? So a just transition has been a buzzword in the governments for about maybe 2 years or so. But I know, again, folks like Ms. Margaret and such have been doing this work for a while, claiming and showing and paving the way to demonstrate what a just transition look like. And so, again, that's what we're part of being here today, is to lead the way on what that looks like. So somebody asked earlier, like, what's been done? Like, we're part of one of the strategies of the solution. And so with that said, I kind of want to take a pause before going into the elements and just talk about this whole who's a planner, who's not, the character of a planner, because I feel like for me, learning and planning informally, once I started learning it, I started feeling like, whoa, the elements of a plan have been kind of determined, yes, by economic money and things like that, but also by the character of the planners, which is white men or whatnot. So it's very narrow. And so when you put a different person, in that position, then the I don't know, the possibilities can just be more endless and expand upon just thinking about land use and buildings and money circulation. You think about more stuff like people's well-being and things like that. So with that said, I just want to walk y'all kind of through how I got into being a planner. You've kind of heard my story about, being at school and things like that. Yet I have an AS in mathematics and natural science, not urban planning. I just saw that my neighborhood was changing right before me. And it was just like, I have to be a part of doing something. And while not nonprofit grassroots work at the moment, I didn't in East Oakland have any outlets or know about any planning at all. And so I know some stuff was going on in West Oakland, yet I wasn't tapped in yet. So I was just at my school, just trying to figure out, what to do or whatnot. But before we get to that story, I just wanted to go into the scientific method. Like I said, I have an AS in mathematics and natural science. So I have a somewhat technical mathematic brain or whatnot. math is universal. So pretty much I translate how I got so into planning and it became seamless to me is because I recognize that I already do planning. You feel me? So that's how I named myself the Hood Planner. Yes, there are some technical and more, I guess, professional skills you could acquire to be like a city planner, but in terms of like the definition of what a planner is and what they do, like anybody can be a planner. You can plan anything. You can write a planning document. Now, how official that document is and who it's recognized by, we'll talk about a little later. But anybody can go through the process of planning or be the planner. And so for me, I pretty much looked at the scientific method. I'm sure you all, since 5th grade science, should have heard of the scientific method, where you first, observe something in your environment and then you ask a question. And so here, just play this video again. So yeah, we have our environment. You see something like, what is going on? You got this railroad, this creek, look like a bunch of stuff is in it. You start asking some questions. Then you start forming a hypothesis about the question, making a prediction about what can happen. Based on the observation, you make a prediction, and then you kind of test that out. In science, that's looked at as conducting experiments and stuff like that. But I'll show you how we can just translate that to being community engagement. And so moving forward, I just want to show you 2 examples, again, how I applied the scientific method into just to planning or whatnot, to the same steps. So one project that I was a part of as an independent person is the San Leandro Lejeune Creek Urban Greenway. Lejeune is the original Ohlone name. And so, yes, as I mentioned, that creek that you just saw with the video is located in deep East Oakland behind the neighborhoods of Brookfield, Columbia Gardens, and Sobrani Park. And so the beauty and potential of this creek has been highlighted by East Oakland youth and students of Merritt College. I myself went to Merritt College, and there was an environmental department, which not many people even knew, that it was a whole environmental department and a horticulture department at Merritt College. So you can learn environmental sustainability, like how to build stuff from sustainable materials. You can learn stuff around mushrooms. You can learn all kind of horticultural and environmental things at Merritt College, right in the hills of East Oakland. And so I took an environmental class that chose to focus on East Oakland environmental issues and how to address those issues. And I just, so happened they start talking about the creek. And so I learned about the creek through Merritt College and also just being out here in the community. I live like 10 minutes away down the street. So some of the youth that was doing community engagement, I ran across them at the East Oakland Boxing Association, also known as EBA. So these youth from Madison Park Academy, I forgot what other youth were involved, but the community college students such as myself, we all start banding together and like advocating like around this creek. So we had this question, first, like, what is this space? Oh, it's a creek, and then we see, man, all right, people are already using this space. So kids were already using this space to get to Madison Park Academy, but they're using it right now and it's unsafe. As you see here, there's no like railings or anything to secure anybody from falling into the creek, but it's a much faster and not necessarily safer yet, but it can be a safer, but it's a much faster route for kids right now to just cut through instead of going the longer route in a residential area. And so the prediction was that pretty much the youth predicted that if you was to redo this space, it can create more jobs for youth to maintain the space. Sorry to note, right here is Planning Justice, Segorite Land Trust. So the land acknowledgement that we got in the beginning of our first session, this is where the Segorite Land Trust land is that they spoke of. So yes, the youth was like, man, we can get some youth jobs out of this. We can get to school faster and safer if we actually built this out to be a bike and pedestrian trail, state certified or whatnot. And they also talked about how it can detour blight. Right now, you have a lot of dumping and things going on. And now with the housing situation, there's a lot of not calling the unhoused blight, but an additional now thing is there's folks living under there, which is actually unsafe because of a lot of, again, the dumping and just toxicity of the area, and also the freeway, just pollution. So yes, these kids, college students as well, but I'm telling you, it was really led by these youth of Madison Park Academy in the Sabrani Park, Columbia Gardens, and Brookfield neighborhood. So after advocating for almost 3 years, letting people like highlighting the question, you feel me, what could we do with this space? And then, you know, letting other people know about their hypothesis, it could be X, Y, and Z. They got the attention of the Alameda County Flood District, which then conducted a study of the creek. So they conducted their own study of the creek with their technical consultants and stuff like that. I don't have that plan here, but you can look up that plan as well. And so after, again, plans create pathways for money. So at first, nobody was checking for San Leandro Creek. And then this group, advocacy group, start talking about it, you know, over 2 or 3 years. And again, we're trying to get it to not take as long, but just letting you know, just the process. For about 2 or 3 years, kept buzzing about this creek to where that the Alameda County actually spent money on a plan for it. And that plan was able to secure $4.1 million to actually construct a bike and pedestrian trail along the creek. So what you see here on the slide is, I'll drop in the link after my presentation so that you can visit this website and just check it out if you would like. So, but yeah, so after all of that advocating and just hypothesizing and thinking and community engagement, they led the charge for the county to now have this $4.1 million to construct this trail. So just showing you all how it really just start with a question or whatnot, and start with the question and you just kind of pondering and being willing to do a little research and engagement with folks to, you know, find out and test some possibilities. And the last thing I would like, not the last thing, but the second example I would like to share, just again, how you can relate scientific methods, or this is just for me. Some of you all may have another method, but I want you to think about how you can, you know, translate that method into the process of planning to make it easy for you. And so the second case study is pretty much, I want to show you a video of some bike advocacy that I did at Merritt College. Again, it all started with a question. I attended Merritt College in the Hills. Long story short, the Merritt College was actually in West Oakland, and that was during the time of like the 60s where the Black Panther Party was doing their thing, educating people, getting folks in the community conscious to their rights, you feel me, as humans and as Black people. And the government and everybody wasn't feeling that. So somehow, coincidentally, the school was moved up to the East Oakland Hills, which created an access barrier. As Prescott talked about access to the shoreline, there's access barriers to Merritt College as well, created intentionally to detour Black and brown folks from getting up there to continue their education and get that Panther, you know, that Pantherism or whatnot. So yes, being at that school, I noticed there's no bike racks up here. Like I take 2 buses to get here. I'm saying, I take 2 buses to get there, sometime to BART, depending on how I'm feeling. And so for folks at the district and Merritt College to think that, oh, this is not a bike friendly school, it's way up top of the hill, nobody's biking up here, is like absurd. And so I just want to show you this video on how over 2 semesters, I didn't have the goal of creating a video. I didn't have the goal of being a planner. I just had a goal of getting some bike racks. And at the time I was in student government, but the district wasn't listening to written documents and things like that. So I was like, man, how can we show them like the issue? And so, yes, just want to show you all the video and I will follow up.
Ride my bike frequently to this campus, and there's nowhere for me to lock my bike. I like to go into the library, do a little bit of studying, but the curator, or the man who handles the library, gives me a hard time about bringing my bike inside.
Professor here at Merritt College. And I have my bike right here because there are no bike racks outside. And I'll be more than happy to park it outside when the district decides to put some bike racks outside of Merritt College. Thank you very much.
So just want to pause. So when I was a student, like I said, I saw that obviously people ride bikes up here, but there's no bike racks, and the areas that they was parking them in was very unsafe. I ran into a couple for real myself. And so supposedly the district had bought bike racks 2 years prior to me bringing this issue up, and they got lost when they was purchased and whatever. And so I started randomly just gathering footage over 2 semesters, again, with no goal to or knowing what I was going to do with it. I just know that I was gathering data and just researching just, what what's actually going on in terms of biking. Because it's easy for the district, the people who's not even never here, to say no one bikes up there. So just.
Hey, this is my first semester here, and I'm kind of appalled by the fact that there aren't any bike racks anywhere. I know we're at the top of a hill, which kind of makes it not much of a biking campus, but for those that do bike, I think it's a necessity to have.
My name is Chika Okoye. I'm a student here. I ride a bike. I always have my bike, and I would love to have bike racks more around campus. It's kind of difficult to find a place to lock up.
In the past, I've had problems dealing with theft on my bike. I got a quick release in the front, no quick release in the back. My back tire has been stolen. That's a problem. So I would appreciate it if we had places to lock our bikes on campus.
Currently, there are no bike racks located on Merritt College's campus. This is not only an issue of accessibility, but an issue of safety. If there are no designated areas to store your bike, it allows free will to store it in unsafe locations and positions. To avoid such liabilities, we should act on this issue as soon as possible. There are simple bike rack models available, such as the example at the Oakland Museum. We have taken the initiative of identifying prime locations for our racks on campus, locations that are accessible all across campus in areas where everyone can see them and no threat to theft. So what is our ask? We, the students of Merritt College, recommend that bike racks be implemented on campus by the beginning of fall in order to increase student success. So through this process, just without being intentional, again, I learned how to do a site analysis. So one of the elements of a plan is existing conditions we'll talk about. So part of existing conditions could be a site analysis and other things, just what's currently going on at the site. And so, yeah, I did, kind of a site analysis in existing conditions. I did perform research on certain materials, to get the costs. And that's also things that go into plans at the end. Once recommendations are made, they want to know what's the cost of that, you feel me? So we'll know how realistic it is or whether to prioritize it or not. And so, yeah, I just wanted to give you all an example of how you probably do this process of planning or, thinking and envisioning, and you don't even know it, or you do know it. And so now I'd like to open it up to you all, and would like to just get 1 or 2 people to share an experience where you use the scientific method to answer or solve a question, or some kind of other method to where you had a question or observed something and addressed it. And what was the outcomes? And looking in the chat, we did ask for the receipt on the supposed bike racks purchase. Yes, my time in student government was pretty much holding the district accountable to things they said they did that never populated for students. Money was up to millions of dollars was stolen in financial aid at that time. It was just a mess. But thanks, Veronica. Did anybody want to share though? I would love to hear from just at least one person about something, even if you haven't gone through the whole process. What have you noticed? What is a question or something that you have about some portion of the shoreline? Maybe.
Yeah, I could share something. It's not really about shoreline. It's just an example of where I could use a method. So I lived in 2 apartments previously, and I noticed that in one apartment, people really knew each other compared to the other where I did not even know who my next door neighbor was. So I decided to like pass around a survey in both the apartments that I lived at and ask people like why they think that they don't know who their neighbor is. And the reason was the way the building was laid out, the architecture of the building. In one building, there was a central courtyard where people could see each other and there were like more chance encounters versus the other where you would never run into any of your neighbors. Yeah.
Thanks, Maria. So basically you telling me by design, which in order for design to happen, a plan got to come first. So by design, the people in your in that apartment complex wasn't social and interactive.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's very similar to the planning processes. By design, older white men have traditionally planned and designed your neighborhood to work for the betterment of the white higher class, middle high class, as well as just for the betterment of the dollar, period. You know, economic benefit. So by design, a lot of our environments and neighborhoods was created the way they were for the benefit of somebody else.
Yeah.
Or whatnot. So that's a very good example. You observed that it was no social interaction. You conducted your own research and you realized that by design, this was the issue. You can't really go and redesign the building, but that would be like the next step, just as we
or create some guidelines on how to design buildings where people can interact with each other. Yeah.
Right. Because you are an architect in your own.
Yeah, I'm an architect.
Right. So yeah, so now you could take that in your own.
Yeah.
Nice. And anybody else want to share? Olu.
I just want to say thank you for this presentation. It's very informative. And it also teaches how you put collaborative problem solving into action. Because different people, students were able to come together and advocate for the bike racks and stuff. So I learned that is very useful.
I see one. Thank you, Olu. I see one. One example I think of is the activist community support centers. Art galleries on Broadway opened up bathrooms, water, and food for demonstrators since other spaces were closed due to COVID. Yes. So the galleries and folks, they observed that, you feel me, it was some folks that had a mission that was in need, you feel me, and needed support because we all, are on the cause of equity. So yeah, they opened up their space to the demonstrators.
I definitely think there's a lot of examples in those demonstrations. Like you'll see people in the cars, like driving down, giving out hand sanitizer, or when they were really throwing the pepper spray around, they were coming through with the milk gallons. So you go to an experience or an event and you see how the community is being responded to. So then the next time it happens, you use that prior knowledge to develop support systems that are necessary. Another example right off the top is indie media. Whenever you go to a lot of these demonstrations, there will be like an impromptu media center that's developed, and that's all like the independent bloggers that are talking about what's going on aside from like CNN's reporting and stuff. But lots of organic grassroots up from the bottom kind of organizing. I can't believe you have a college without bike racks. Like that's just so mind-boggling to me. It's nuts.
Yep. They had a brand new $1 million STEM building with no bike racks. And so I forgot to mention the moral of that story, not the moral, but no more than like a semester later, yes, just the next semester, very next semester, we got bike racks, and not just bike racks. They added like little tool stations next to the bike rack with different type of little wrenches and tools and stuff that people can use, and like a pump. So we got a little bit more than we asked for, but the fact that we just asked, and yeah. So for me, experiencing that process, it was like, well, dang, like there's strength in numbers. You got to be visible, because the district had heard us talking about bike racks all this time, but it was different when you had testimonies, again, visual testimonies. That video was shown at the board meeting, and so and I can't deny it or whatnot. And so yeah, and it's the same thing with the city. So I started, on a college campus. That was like my project area or whatnot, and I started seeing that the issues that we have on the campus really are stemming from the community, and so that's why I kind of diverted my attention from school advocacy and got into East Oakland to the community. Really, I started down in West Oakland, and then found some stuff in East Oakland. So it don't matter whether you on campus, West Oakland, East Oakland, the shoreline, in your neighborhood. Like, I just wanted y'all to just take a step and just get everybody to realize that the process and how you do stuff, is very similar or whatnot. Because often we get told that we're not, like, we don't understand planning, or like the way that it's explained to us, like we don't understand planning, or just how it impacts us on many levels. So just wanted to put that out there. Any questions before I move forward?
Yeah, can I ask you a question? So as a citizen, can I just like submit a plan to the city? Is it possible?
You said, can you submit a plan to the city?
Yeah. Can I say that, here's a plan, can you consider it? Can I do that?
So on a personal level, so as a homeowner, you can submit plans for your house, and you are required to for some things, for some upgrades and things that you do to your house, you have to have plans. Now, if you're talking about planning for a neighborhood, so like
that's right,
like a community plan, it depends. We're trying to get it to, like, as of now, like I feel like it depends to like they don't just automatically accept the plan or whatnot. That's why we do all this advocacy to get the plan like recognized. And now that the general plan is here, this is really our time to get our community plans like mentioned in the general plan. Because if they're not mentioned in the bigger, greater documents, then they mean a lot to us, but the city really don't have to adhere to them to some extent or whatnot. It's what I've experienced, you feel me, in my time in planning. So like the plan I'll tell you about later, Ioni, I'll get a little bit more of an example by talking about that plan.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
But you can't, it's not that you can't, but like city plans require certain legal elements, and that's what we'll get in a little bit about when we talk about the elements. So like city plan requires certain legal elements that community plans often don't have, and not because we don't have the skills and stuff too. Again, we're trying to like show different, and like they've always been trying to overshadow our lived experience and our observations with data and like all of that legal stuff and whatnot. And so it's like, yeah, if it wasn't recognized or if it wasn't done by this process, then it's not recognized as an official plan. So like even our plan, it's a community plan, it's not a specific plan.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
I'll get later. Anyone else? Mitzi, your hand still up from, sorry, Mitzilia?
No, I got to put it down. Thank you.
Can I call you Mitzi?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, let me get back in it. Okay, cool. Thank y'all so much for sharing. All right, now elements of a city/community plan, because again, they vary a bit. So standard plan elements below are some standard table of contents of most plans. So the table of contents most of the time resemble the elements of the plan. So as you see here, most plans, city or community, have an intro, some kind of background context, a vision, kind of goal, vision, what are we doing here? Existing conditions. So that goes from site analysis, like I mentioned earlier, what's happening now across the board from, the standard existing conditions be like limited to like, transportation, traffic, how are like the surface level things or whatnot. And we're trying to change it to be not just care about surface level, but also underneath. But for right now, existing conditions in most traditional plans are like surface level conditions. And then you have a CEQA. Not all plans require CEQA, but a lot of most specific plans require CEQA, environmental impact report. And I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. But yeah, that's one of those legal elements that plans require to be recognized and to receive certain monies. And that's again what it's all about, monies. No one wants to get sued or anything. So we'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. And then a lot of plans tell you the process or the approach and how they did it. That have not always included community engagement. Now you'll see community engagement right there instead of process and approach. But yes. Next is recommendations. So at the end of each plan, after they've told you about the intro, why we're here, the goals, the existing conditions, and told you about some other reportings and how they approached it, then they tell you about what came out of it, the recommendations. So then they make some recommendations, and those are across the board from policy to programs to other things. And within the recommendations is either within or after is like some feasibility data. And so when I say feasibility data is like, how much does this cost or whatnot? Not all plans put numbers to put a budget to things, but those longer extensive plans are already have some of the projects that's proposed budgeted out so that it's in package to where it can then go out for funding, but not all plans are that detailed. And then you have an appendix, and an appendix have like a lot of additional information, maps, and just additional resources to reference from the plan that you read. And here, right here is just the table. Which one is this from? ECAP. Yeah, this is from ECAP. Just showing a little bit. So let me step back to CEQA just 1 second. I'm not a CEQA expert or anything. I just know that it's important. Again, in terms of specific plans and laws and regulations around environmental impact, it's just important. And it's often it's often an element that holds processes back. And so, yes, an EIR outlines the status of the environment in the affected area, provides a baseline for understanding the potential consequences of the proposed project, identifies positive and negative effects for the environment, and offers alternative actions, including inaction in relation to the proposed projects. So the last CEQA process that I remember following was the Coliseum specific plan. So the Coliseum area has a specific plan. Some of you may know it as Coliseum City. The plan used to kind of be centered around us having 3 sports teams and kind of them anchoring the economic flow of that area. Y'all know we down to 1 to no teams at the Coliseum. So now they have to like rethink that whole plan. But one big part of that, one mandate of that specific plan was to conduct an environmental impact report. And so a lot of Oakland advocates, Oakland Unite, some other advocates, been following the Coliseum specific plan for a minute, and the A's moving to Howard Terminal, as well as WOAP. And so, yeah, the environmental, how what you're planning impacts the environment matters. And so that's what the EIR is intended to do. Any questions about that before I move forward? Ooh.
Yeah, I was just curious if the CEQA or EIR are legally required for a plan to be implemented.
No, they're not for a plan to be implemented, because like I'll talk about our Ione plan, the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative. It's just a community plan, yet we have been implementing with the city some of the projects that have come out of it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they don't need to be official to be, have a CEQA to be implemented, but to have designated funding like from the city, yes, it has to, yeah, be recognized.
So like the city won't spend money on something if that doesn't come with a CEQA.
I won't say they won't, I'll just say they'll, and not just a CEQA, it'll just be less, it'll be just less prioritized.
Yeah, it'll be harder.
Just go with like the standard, what's supposed to be done. So like, yeah, so like the Coliseum specific plan, it had to have a CEQA because it's a specific plan. If it was a Coliseum plan, then they wouldn't have to have a CEQA, and the city could still implement that plan, yet they may not, it would be up to them in their budget and the community's advocacy to, decide prioritization.
Got it, thank you.
So like the city has like a general budget, we all know, and certain portions of the money goes here, and there. And so that budget is very tight. And so most of the specific plans and things like that get a piece of that budget, opposed to the outer plans or whatnot that's not directly made from the city. And that's, again, that don't have to be like that. That's just how our city been operating and how we're trying to influence, more change and not make it just be about like laws and regulations and government approval of plans.
Kita, I just wanted to mention that Maria put in a really good understanding of CEQA, which that it's required when the plan is beyond what the land has been zoned for or land uses, and it will essentially affect beyond its own footprint. So that's it's very simplistic, but that's a very clear definition. So thank you, Maria. Just wanted to acknowledge people if they haven't looked that up in the chat or seen that in the chat.
All right, thank you. It didn't pop up for me. Yes, I'll read it again. CEQA is required when the plan is beyond what the land has been zoned land used for. So as I mentioned for the Coliseum, a CEQA was required because people, not even say people, there's different investors and developers that want to do different things with that land. And right now, and y'all know, we've been learning about sea level rise and things like that. The Coliseum site is very vulnerable to sea level rise, groundwater flooding, on top of some other climate stressors. It's already pumping out, meaning the Oracle Arena is already pumping out, I forgot how much water already in certain seasons, just, with no additional sea level rise. So it's already an issue over there. So what happens at that site, it really matters. So we've been fortunate, like I said, to have some advocates really following that process. So just reiterating that the type of elements that I kind of just discussed in plans have expanded since the push for community planning. Traditional topics such as land use, transportation, public health and safety, and economic workforce development have always been in place. Again, kind of the surface level things. Newly required elements such as environmental justice can be considered revolutionary. As a profile of planners expand beyond older white men, new important elements rise, such as anti-displacement, to address racial and socio-economic injustices as well. And so what this just means is, like I showed you here, most older plans, I'm gonna say most, but a lot of older plans, you'll just see something standard like this list right here. But moving forward, you're gonna start seeing more elements included that are deemed important to the people, not just the developers and the money makers. So you'll start seeing environmental justice overlays required, like for the general plan update Prescott mentioned. For this year is the first year time that an EJ element is required instead of being optional. And so what that is, or pretty much what I'm saying is that we're creating new frameworks for equity, for more equitable planning. Right here, you see collaborative problem solving and participatory research. These two are two strategies that WOAP use to do more equitable planning along the way. And here on the left side, we have a community-driven resilience planning framework. And this framework was created by a National Association of Climate Resilience Planners that created a framework on how to do community-driven climate resilience planning by and for the community. And so a lot of folks have been learning from WOAP, from this document, and there's other methods and frameworks. I've learned about 2 more as I was creating this slide. And yeah, new frameworks are being created every day. So I'm just letting you all know that y'all are part of that process, and we're just thankful to have creative and willing folks to be here. So this is just, again, an example of some of the table of contents. I showed you like the, the standard, kind of the standard one. Here is Ioni's, again, we community. So we added elements that we felt was important to us. And I'll get more into this document in a second. And here we have owning our own air in the West Oakland Community Action Plan. And as you see here, community description, community engagement, and community engagement is like high up in city documents and other documents. Community engagement be at like the end of the process. And so, yeah, just want to show you all. So I'm just gonna take you through just looking at some plans and share a resource at the end where you can get all of these plans in one place. But just really quickly, would like to show you a few. First one, as I just mentioned, was the West Oakland Community Action Plan. I'm less familiar with this plan, but Ms. Margaret Gordon, Brian, and the West Oakland community really pushed the city, did a partnership agreement first and foremost to engage around, how West Oakland can reclaim their air and just create a better community. I just want to show you some of the elements. Sorry, I don't want to scroll too fast, but let me get through some of this stuff. So yes, like how this stuff looks from a community plan, like there are some like technical standards of renderings and things like that in traditional plans, but the beauty about doing these community plans, we can do stuff how we want. And so yeah, just showing here how this plan is decided to show the community description. It's on West Oakland history, make it a little bigger. So it's like, it's important to get across what you want people to know in your plan, without being super long-winded if you want more people to read it, but definitely make sure you get across, what's important for people to understand about West Oakland today or wherever you are today. So these are like existing conditions. Showing you the residential zones, where different amenities are and assets are. It's like an asset map. So assets, different assets in the community, childcare, schools, senior facilities, after school programs, libraries. The asset maps, creating these or just reviewing them is definitely part of the planning process, community engagement process.
Kita, are you flipping through slides right now?
Oh, you can't, I'm sorry.
I'm just seeing, I think it's the Canva
Yeah,
screen.
I was just about to tell you the same thing. You're not showing your presentation. It's stagnant. So you got to put it into presentation mode.
Oh, my bad, y'all. Okay. Let's see. Here. Wow. Hang on 1 second, y'all. My bad. I don't know why it's not coming up. Can you guys see now? Or you still see?
Yeah.
No, we're seeing your environmental science screen. Is that what you want to show, or do you want you want to show the Canva?
Can you see me scrolling through the plan?
Yeah, you're in a PDF now. Yeah, we see that.
Yes. Okay, my bad, y'all. I started from up here, just showing you all the community description and how it's shown in the West Oakland plan, the West Oakland Community Action Plan. Sorry, I'm gonna go through a little faster. So I was saying, West Oakland today and plans, again, when you create the plan, you get to be able to tell the story about your community and like what you want people to know. That's important. And what you're trying to address. Here's the asset map I was talking about. Something that we'll do together through our planning sessions with Prescott. And so, yes, I just wanted to show you just a little bit, some examples of this plan. So that was owning our air. Then we have the ECAP, the Equitable Climate Action Plan. And this was done by the city, but the community engagement was facilitated by of a consulting group and some nonprofits to make the engagement more equitable. So like here, you can see a list of actions that came out of this plan. Here are the table of contents, the different elements that was discussed. And here are a list of actions that came out of the community engagement and research that was done over the year or so of the ECAP plan. So let's see, let's look at one. Building transportation, let's look at adaptation. So Phoenix mentioned earlier, fund creation and operation of resilience hubs. So again, resilience hubs has been another buzzword for about 3 or 4 years. They're formally becoming a thing, and now the city is starting to put it in documents. And so, yes, I mean, funding is going to start coming through for resilience hubs, or like, it means that the city can spend money on resilience hubs and know that they're mission aligned. And let's see, another plan I'll show you actually, sorry. Okay, the plans are all over the place. Can you see the estuary commons in front of you?
You see the bike plan.
The bike plan.
Okay. You see the bike plans. So we'll actually skip to Coliseum specific. So here's a Coliseum area specific plan that I had mentioned. And again, I'll send you all of these plans and some more in a nice document. So this one is a specific plan. So this one had to have CEQA for the reasons mentioned in the chat. And again, table of contents, and we'll just go through. Sorry, if you go too fast, you can't preview. But yeah, I'm just scrolling through just to show y'all what inside of some of these plans look like. Again, vision and summary and goals. But yeah. So to catch up on time, I'm gonna go straight into talking about EONI, just a little bit more in depth. So EONI is the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative. You all can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Cool. So the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative is a community plan that was led by 13 East Oakland groups in the city of Oakland in partnership with the city of Oakland's planning department. So we as groups, we found some grant money, but the city, we didn't qualify as an applicant. So we went to the city and was like, we want you to apply for this on behalf of us, in partnership with us. And so long story short, we pressured them to do it, and we end up getting the grant. One place we fell short, a lot of us, well, me, this was my first time in the actual planning process doing this plan with so many people too. And so, yeah, it was a lot of moving parts, a lot of people. So one thing that we failed to do in the beginning, like that we wanted to really do, was create a partnership agreement with the planning department. And that's something that Ms. Margaret Gordon, like, you know, beats into all of us to make sure that, you know, we have that so that we know how we operate with folks, which is important. So when issues and stuff come up, like, you know how to address that. But I just wanted to mention that I really want to get more into the elements of this community plan and just how it kind of differs from the traditional plans you may see. So first of all, just starting off again, you know, with seeing the residents, you know, hearing from the residents, like we feel like that's important. This plan is 92 pages, much longer than we would like it to be if we want actual community residents to read it. Yet, you feel me? It won't just be community residents. We know that we're trying to shop this to, you know, different governments and funders and things. So we made it all count. And so our opening just talked about the project and what it is, got our project areas, did some background on where we got the funds from out of respect. And then really just talking about, you know, EONI, the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative, and like what that is. And, you know, talking about all the different partners. And this is what we chose to do. We didn't have to talk about our partners or anything. And so it's always a, you know, background context or something. So we called our section Change, History, Planning, and Justice. So we took readers through like the history and planning and justice of Oakland and specifically Deep East Oakland. But we took it, you know, from Oakland and then honed in, and you can go from the nature to the cities to policies that change over time. We talk about white flight. We talk about some other problems and challenges, things that you really normally don't see in plans, social, economic issues and stressors that we know to be true, but again, you don't really see it acknowledged in the plan. And we also did have some back and forth with the planner, young white male planner that was our co-project manager. He tried to fact checked us a lot, like, well, how can you prove this? Because we would give our lived experience. So we had to do a lot of editing and rewriting or whatever on this section because the city, since we were still partners, like we had to adhere to a certain amount of some of their rules. And so, yeah, just the fact checking and stuff, they was really trying to be absurd, but we challenged it. Again, like our lived experience, we lived it, like we feel it. So I don't have no sight for you, but I know, like I lived that and felt that. And so we basically broke down kind of, the growing Latinx community, like really showed just how this area got to what it is. And we only chose to do this because we haven't seen we haven't seen these elements like explained like this in other East Oakland plans. And so we thought that it was important to just do it at least once. So now the plans that we do moving forward, it won't be as long and extensive because you can find this information here. But we felt like it was important to just put it out there for the record. Just moving forward, again, existing conditions. So we focus on 6 different neighborhoods. So for every neighborhood, we have a vision, community priorities. This is actually my neighborhood, Stonehurst, Brookfield. So we did existing conditions for each neighborhood and then overall. And to get those existing conditions, we pulled census data, did surveys, but mainly census data. Most existing conditions come from census data and other state data that already exist. Desired outcomes. We wanted to really make sure that people understand our desired outcomes. We wanted to make sure that we have better neighborhoods for the same neighbors, and we wanted better social, economic, and climate opportunities. I'm running out a little bit of time, so I'm gonna go a little faster. So yeah, this is the process. Desired outcomes is our process. We trained 12 community members so that myself and other orgs wasn't just hogging the money and the work. We actually trained 12 residents outside of ourselves who live in these 6 neighborhoods, just like yourselves, to lead this process. So I was basically like a technical advisor to a resident leader who went out there and facilitated 3 meetings of engagement, as you see here. And throughout that process, it was a nitty-gritty process of all of us learning about how to do it, like challenging the city, trying to stick to, what we wanted and didn't want to change at times. I did a lot of surveying with folks. bunch of community just engagement, and so that's where we got our findings from all of that engagement and surveys, pop-ups that we did, social media campaigns. These were our findings. And so without going too deep into it, we broke down the findings that had the top 5 findings. We broke those down into like elements of the plan. And so as you see here, like safe and accessible transportation, grow community wealth. So like those are some of the top things that had came out. And then we went in to do specific projects for each neighborhood. So it's like at least 15 to 16 projects per neighborhood that was proposed through this project. And so far we've moved forward. We found funding for like 7 of them, with and without the city. And this is not, again, there was no CEQA process. It's not a specific plan. It was just us. We found some money to create for a planning process. We created the plan based on what we want to see for our neighborhoods. And we just been staying on the city about the fact that y'all need to recognize this plan, you know, CEQA or, you know, general funds or not. Like, we need to work together to find out how to implement some of this stuff. And so, yes, just wanted to show you again how the elements of the plan can vary, depends on who's the one creating it. And so that's really the conclusion of what all I had. The only thing else that I wanted to share with you all was the resource share. So Prescott and I will send you, can you see the spreadsheet? Can y'all see the spreadsheet?
Can't see it.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Well, don't know why it's not working, but yes, we created a spreadsheet with about, I don't know how many plans, but a lot of the plans that I mentioned today and the ones that's relevant for the work that you're going to be doing in this academy. So we created a spreadsheet, and we plucked out what's relevant to the shoreline. And so, yeah, it happens to website, and you can click on the plan, you can read some of just little experts about what's most important. So we kind of went through it, an intern kind of went through it and did a lot of the heavy lifting to pull out what's important. But we wanted to share that with you all just as a resource so that you can get familiar with the plans along the way. And thank y'all. Appreciate you for all the questions and engagement.
Thank you so much.